Do you want the landlord to have the upper hand? Watch this video to learn the best terms to include in your lease that'll benefit you now and in the future. If you're a startup business getting ready to sign your first lease agreement, I'm about to share with you important information that'll help you secure a strong lease agreement on terms that protect your interests. I'm Kavita Korpatia, founder of Acreage Real Estate. I specialize in the sales and leasing of commercial property. I've helped countless people negotiate their first commercial lease, and I'm excited to be sharing valuable insight with you. In my past videos, we took a deep dive in how to identify locations that best meet your needs, and I discussed the importance of submitting a strong lease application to make a powerful first impression on a landlord. Remember, a landlord approves a tenant based on two things: the tenant's finances and capabilities, which is what an application is for, and the terms of the lease agreement, which is what the L.O.I is for. In this video, I'll detail important terms to include in your letter of intent that will become the blueprint for the binding lease agreement. Before we get into the variety of terms to include in your L.O.I, it's important to note that there are several different types of lease agreements that are utilized in the commercial world. These correspond with certain asset types. I'll discuss the difference of these leases further in a future video. Today, we'll focus on basic lease terms that are common across all lease types. Remember, lease terms are supposed to address matters that'll affect you today and in the future. Therefore, you do need to be forward-thinking. Your L.O.I should address future needs as well as immediate needs. First, let's discuss the obvious, which is the rent amount. In most commercial leases, unless you're in a high-demand area, there's always some flexibility on the rent that's being advertised. I've noticed most owners are generally willing to come down about 5 to 10% if they like your use and financial history. That doesn't mean they'll definitely discount the rent, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Next, in commercial leases, the rent generally has an annual increase based on a percentage. Some landlords use consumer price index percentage increase, and some like to use a fixed percentage increase. For instance, if your rent is $2,000 per month when you sign your lease and the annual increase is 3%, that means your rent will increase to $2,060 per month starting in year 2 of the lease, and then increase to $2,122 per month in year 3 of the lease. You can negotiate the percentage amount. You can also negotiate this to be a fixed amount without an annual increase. But I've noticed that most landlords generally want some percentage increase than none. Another thing you can negotiate is the amount of security deposit. As a tenant, you want this to be as low as possible, something roughly close to 1 month's rent. But a landlord might want more if they perceive you as a higher risk tenant. Unlike residential leases, in most states, there's no limit on the amount of security deposit for commercial leases. Try to find a number that both the landlord and you can agree on. Next, figure out how much time do you need to get set up and open for business. Most landlords are willing to offer about a month of free rent. However, if you have a lengthy construction that you have to complete before you can open for business, then work with your contractor to figure out an estimate of the construction time and use that as an estimate to ask for the rent. For example, if your contractor needs 3 months for construction and an additional 1 month to obtain building permits from the city before construction can even start, then I would ask the landlord for 4 to 5 months of free rent. A prudent landlord is generally willing to give some free rent to bring in a good tenant with a reasonable request. Some landlords might be willing to offer what's called a tenant improvement allowance towards your construction costs. This means they'll pay money towards your construction costs. I'd like to emphasize here, not all landlords will do this. It's good to ask the landlord if they'll provide a TI allowance or not. If they don't provide it, see if they can provide you additional free rent in lieu of the TI allowance. You can negotiate how much TI allowance they pay and how that money is dispersed to you. You can also ask the landlord to complete some of the build-outs for you. You can ask for the space to be repainted or floors to be changed, or perhaps you need an additional room or two to be built out. Remember, This doesn't mean they'll do all of the stuff you ask for, but they'll be open to finding a solution to your needs. Next, figure out the length of a lease you're comfortable committing to. If you're not sure the size of the space is absolutely right and not totally confident of the location, or the rent is higher than what you think your business can comfortably afford, you might want to keep the lease 3 years or under. This will give you a good trial run. Now, to protect your future interests, you should also ask for an option to renew for another 3 or 5 years. This means that once your lease ends, you'll have the right to extend the lease for an additional time. You won't have to pack your bags and relocate. You can also negotiate the rent amount of this renewal period in your L.O.I. that you're getting ready to submit. You can ask the landlord to continue the same annual percentage increase that you'll be using in your initial lease. Please note, there are time frames in which you have to inform the landlord your wish to practice this option to renew before your lease expires. This time frame for notification can also be negotiated in the L.O.I. Furthermore, signage and displays can also be negotiated. If the landlord has additional directory or monument signs at the entrance of the shopping center, ask them if you can post your name on those signs as well. Spaces on those signs tend to be limited. Most owners don't really offer that space unless you ask for it, so don't hesitate to ask. Another thing to ask is a warranty on the mechanical systems for a period of time. In most commercial leases, the heating, AC, electrical, and plumbing systems will be the tenant's responsibility to maintain. But you can ask the landlord to guarantee it for a period of time. This can be 6 months or whatever length you can negotiate. Lastly, are there any particular and unique needs that you have that need to be addressed? Feel free to insert your unique issue in the L.O.I. Remember, the L.O.I. is a summary of what we want to see in the lease. When you're negotiating an L.O.I., don't see it as a competition of who gets more, but a collaboration. You have certain needs and limitations, and so does the landlord. In my videos, I try to go into details to explain the mentality of the people on the other side so that you have insight into their decision-making process. And that knowledge is power. We covered a lot in this video. Thank you for watching. I wish you all the success in your business venture. Please like this video if you found it to be useful, and please follow us for more future videos. See you next time.